Welcome to Dr. Jeffrey Roth's Looking Good and Feeling Great podcast, live from Las Vegas, with his co-host, Darrell Craig Harris.
Welcome back to Looking Good, Feeling Great podcast with Dr. Jeffrey Roth from Las Vegas, and that's actually going to be part of our topics today.
It is, absolutely. It's the greatest city in the world, and, go ahead and change my mind.
I'll fight you. Speaking of fights, well, part of what you do is you've been associated with Top Rank Boxing for several years.
Yes.
And we were talking about sports related to plastic surgery, and then Las Vegas now is becoming quite a sports capital.
Yes.
That's happened really over the last 3 or 4 years, I guess.
It's been really incredible. I mean, growing up here, again, moving to town in 1977, there was really, 250,000, 300,000 people.
It was tiny then, right?
Yeah. That was it. Eastern was the easternmost street. Nobody lived past Decatur. It was, and everybody really knew everybody. So, and then we always had some sports, but we would listen to the Lakers and the Dodgers and the Rams and stuff like that.
We would kind of adopt the LA sports teams.
Yeah, so that would be kind of us. It'd be kind of the Las Vegas division of that. And then UNLV came to national prominence with Jerry Tarkanian and all he did, and et cetera, back in 1990, and winning the national championship and all that. And forever couldn't place bets on the Rebels because they thought that would be crossing the line, et cetera. But now things are so well regulated that you can do all that, and sports betting has become so universal that guys in Jersey, they just pick up their phone and they can go ahead and get down on a game, etc. Completely legally.
The genies definitely have that bubble.
Completely legally. And so, who would have thought, if somebody would have told me that 30 years out of your 20 years ago, 10 years ago, out of your mind.
Right.
And so now you can actually do that during the Laker game. You can go ahead and get, because the computers now are so fast, you can go ahead and get odds between quarters and between halves, and it just is over unders. It just boggles the mind. And in fact, to your point with Top Rank Boxing, it's getting to the point where some folks in some circles are kicking around the ideas of doing that same thing during boxing, which again blows my mind because you only have like a minute between rounds. So for somebody to compute a different set of odds and then you be able to see it and then to be able to say, okay, this seems like a good bet, and then to press the button and actually make it happen within that minute, it blows my mind. Yeah. So it's I know I'm a dinosaur and everything else like that, but so that's that part of the sports world. And then Las Vegas was famous for boxing for forever, especially that took place in the parking lot of Caesar's Palace. And if you ask a Bob Arum or if you ask a Don King, they'll both tell you that was really the most fun.
And they really brought Las Vegas to the world.
Oh, 100%.
Really through those fights.
And folks would go to other places and they'll say, where are you from? Las Vegas. Oh, Caesar's Palace, boxing.
Yeah, they get a sparkle in their eye when you mention it.
Oh, okay. So, and so that was, if you know Las Vegas, it was out in the parking lot before the Forum Shops opened, et cetera, and it was Hagler, it was Hearns, it was
Ali, all those guys.
The four guy was Hagler, Hearns, Sugar Ray, and Hands of Stone, and I'm completely blanking on him. And Panama, why am I blanking on him? Roberto Duran. Geez whiz. Okay.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Gosh, they're going to kick me in the shins. Anyway, so those the four kings, and they all had 3, 4 losses, 5 losses. Nobody cared because they fought each other, and there was some of the greatest fights ever was in the parking lot at Caesar's Palace.
Right.
And everybody came. All Hollywood came. All of the celebrities came. Everybody, guys from New York came. All the athletes came. It was just, and the whole town was electric with that. And so that continues to evolve. And so then we have the UFC.
They're based here, which a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, with the Fertitta fellas and Dana White and all of that. And so, and they're, like you said, they're based here in Las Vegas. And now we've become a real sports town in as much as we have the Raiders, professional football team. We have the national champion women's basketball team, the Aces.
Right.
And we have a AAA team and soon to be, hopefully, Major League Baseball team. And, of course, we have the Golden Knights. So And they for some reason, they all want to put them on the corner of the Strip and Tropicana, which, again, I don't understand.
That's another topic, yeah.
That's another topic for another day. So, having said all that, we've all of a sudden become a legitimate sports town and a little bit sports team, which I think is just absolutely fabulous.
Right.
And then we have a professional lacrosse team, too. Got to get that in.
Desert Dogs.
The Desert Dogs.
Yeah.
So, and they have a phenomenal ownership team. And so I think that they're really going to make a big run for it. And I think it's great.
Yeah, and there's also related to plastic surgery that's also grown up in Las Vegas.
Yep.
As the city has gotten bigger, as we've talked about before, people, when you first moved here, you meet some people and they had kids and just a normal life, and you find out they're a showgirl or they're or whatever.
The classic example is again, it was a small town back in the day. And so, junior high school, you get picked up from, the Little League or whatever, or the junior high school. And, the kid that you were, running around with, his mom shows up, right? And so she gets out of the car and she's, 5'10", you know what I mean?
Just knockout,
and
gorgeous.
Gorgeous, right? And she has the cast jacket for, it could be Lido or Folies Bergère, or it could be Jubilee, whatever the case may be. And she's a showgirl, but she's also a mom. And she's your buddy's mom, and which is kind of like, oh, yeah, that's normal. And so, which is...
Why do all the 12-year-olds want to go hang out at so-and-so's
right? No kidding. So, Stacy's mom.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, or, also growing up, not my dad, but other guys, dads, they may not be able to show up because they're working swing shift or graveyard shift, right? Mm-hmm. And so their life is a little bit different, et cetera. And again, when I was growing up, I worked at a T-shirt shop. It's called Silly Shirts. It was in the arcade over at the MGM Grand, which is the one that caught on fire, which then became Bally's, which is now called the Horseshoe. Anyways, so, and... it was a great place, and they had the old MGM movies, and it was really cool. You took a picture with a lion. It was just bananas, and especially in Vegas. And looking back on that lion, if you really wanted you for lunch, there was no stopping this lion. Just like, and people, and tourists were taking pictures of it and flash photography, and the lion it's nuts. In any case, she would have no chance that would go now. Yeah. So
it's funny when you're a kid, and when you're a kid growing up here, you just think that's normal.
Oh, it's normal. Yeah, absolutely normal. So you go away for college. You're like, what do you mean I can't go grocery shopping at 3 a.m?
Exactly.
You're like, huh? Exactly. 7-Elevens are open from 7 to 11.
Right.
What do you mean? So yeah.
Funny.
And then Blue Laws and all that kind of stuff. But I'm here at the T-shirt shop, right? And I'm a high school kid, and for some reason, the employees' dining room, they had to basically walk, kind of past where I was, and they would have the full makeup on with the long lashes and the whole 9 yards, and they would be all maked up. They would run and get like a soda. Back then, it was like a Tab, right? Tab, and then they would run back and then put all their gear up and the headdresses. But basically that's kind of changed over the years. And I was privileged to take care of a lot of those folks, but then also the cocktail waitresses. I mean, some of them are actually legendary. There was one gal, I think finally she's retired now. She was at Binion's Horseshoe downtown. She was short, but she had this beehive like Marge Simpson, and I mean, the beehive was taller than she was, and a long time ago, I was downtown for some reason, and I went into the Binion's Horseshoe because they always had a good deli, which is right next to a sports book. Sports book delis are usually a good thing, by the way.
Oh yeah.
So I go in there, right? I'm going to get a sandwich. And I turn the corner, and I almost knock her down because she was coming the other way. I'm like, oh, my God, are you okay, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, oh, my God, it's her. And I called my brother Jack, and I'm like, you never knew who I literally just ran into, and I almost took her out. And I described her like, oh, my God, I know exactly who that is. She's been there for 30 years, easy. And then the Caesar's Palace gals, they were terrific. They had the togas, and now you're going to Google this, the Caesar's Palace toga cocktail waiters. But they had the togas, and they had this like cone headdress, and the hair came out of the cone, and it was great. And back then, they were really part and parcel of all of the glitz and glamour that really was Las Vegas. And some of those gals have been around literally 40 years. So now in my plastic surgery journey, I've been taking care of those folks for now 20 plus years, And so I see some of the evolution from the gals that come in who they're really big breast dogs, et cetera, but now they've had a couple kids, or now they've hit menopause, or for whatever reason, they say, oh, well, these were great, but enough already. And so what we're doing a lot now is downsizing and doing some lifting, because again, if you downsize, you're going to have extra skin and you got to kind of lift things up a little bit. Or some folks are, if they're really done, they say, look, these were great, but enough already, and they'll take the implants out. And it was some coffee shop, I think it was Seattle, something like that. And it was a gal that, she wasn't in a sexy, it was just a pair of jeans and a sweater. Right. And they basically stuffed the sweater or didn't stuff the sweater. And basically the tips went up significantly, both from men and women.
Ah, interesting.
So,
I didn't know that.
So there you have it. Yeah. And then we all know
something in our DNA.
Well, yeah, and then also, but the casinos, and I love the casinos. They know that, and especially the young guys. And I think it started off at the Hard Rock, and then it went to Caesars with the Pussycat Dolls and the Rio and other kind of hip places. Is basically you have the dealers that are dealing 21, right? And then you have like a go-go dancer behind there, right? And young guys, especially, they get completely distracted.
Yeah, they're going to hang out longer.
They can't. The first thing is they can't count. They can't count to 21, and they make mistakes, and so or they get distracted, they make mistakes, so they double down when they're not supposed to. So and they play 6 to 5 instead of 3 to 2. So they're already kind of taxing you. Yeah. So that's always, and like the guys that have been in Vegas forever think that, this is Bush League, et cetera, et cetera. But it's the biggest producing area of the pit in so one guy,
at one point you saw all the casinos, especially downtown, they all had that.
started doing that. And that's a little passé now. But having said that, for a while, they went after that. Yeah. And that was always the highest production in the pit. Well, especially that demographic. Right. Especially when, and usually that demographic comes in March Madness. You have your 20-year-olds hitting Vegas for March Madness and that kind of stuff. So, and it depends. Like it says, we were just talking before we got on. It sort of depends on, the crowd sort of depends on what's going on in town. For example, between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's is always huge for Vegas, right? But that area, there was really nothing. It was really dead until the Cowboys showed up. And now with the PBR and everything else like that, thank God for the Cowboys, they come to town and it is fun and they spend money and it's a good thing.
We sort of have that NFR season in Vegas. It's basically, a month, 3 weeks?
It's and so, back in the day, all the marquees out front went from, Tom Jones to Conway Twitty, and
George Strait,
all of it. And it's great. And the cocktail waitresses again, they come in and they talk to me and says, "Oh yeah, these guys like they change out the liquor. They like the Crown Royal and Budweiser. So that's what those guys like. So, but again, getting back to fights, is that will bring in and the hotels love the fights because it brings in that certain person that wants to go to Vegas. They want to have a good time. They don't mind, blowing money on
they might save up all year to come in, or there's plenty of people that have tons of money coming in. Right,
or the whales fly in and that kind of stuff, and they're just out for a good time, and so the heck with the price, and that's a lot of fun, and that really makes, to your point, everybody comes in, and it's a big equalizer in as much as you don't know what's coming through the airport, number one, and then two, best people watching the world is the Las Vegas airport and at a fight. And because it's just bananas what shows up there, and it's an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, and now it's part of the whole sports story too. Just now we have the Raiderettes, that's becoming a big thing. It was actually funny because I'm a photographer as well, and I remember I shot the Hall of Fame game in Canton last year with the Raiders and the Jaguars, and our Raiderettes they're professional dancers. They're Yeah. It's like watching a Vegas show, and then you see the other poor team. They have their They're cheerleaders. I kind of felt bad for them a little bit because our girls are just amazing, right?
Yeah. So it's a thing that you can be a straight up legit professional dancer and make a living in town.
Yeah.
And which
there's only a few places you can do that.
Very few places you can actually you do that. Mm-hmm. And so, but Vegas is again the entertainment capital of the world, and so we can do that. And again, what's coming up now is we're even diversifying that, because now that we have the Raiders, nobody throws a party like Vegas, right? So we did the draft, which was a huge success. Everybody loved that. And again, we have 150,000 rooms in town. Okay,
right.
So bring it.
We're uniquely set up
so
for that. Yeah.
Bring it. And so we're set up for all of that. And so now the Super Bowl is going to be here in a couple of years, which is going to be
this year.
Phenomenal. This year.
Yeah.
This year. Gosh, I forgot my years. Yeah. So and that's going to be just a lot of fun and everything else. And what's coming up now is Las Vegas has made a deal with F1, which is race cars,
right?
And which is huge in Europe and in Asia and the Middle East and such. And so it's going to bring in a whole new demographic, a whole new demographic, and they're going to be here for a while. I mean, they went ahead and they bought a big piece of expensive land, and they're pouring concrete, and they're making a huge paddock, and they're making a fan experience. So, and the historic thing is they actually were here before. They were in Caesar's Palace parking lot.
I remember that.
Back in, I want to say, 82, something along those lines. I tried to sneak in, and they wouldn't let me. So, kudos to Caesar security even back then. But it was absolutely phenomenal. And again, if you can dream it, you can do it, especially here in Las Vegas. So with that said, is those things will trickle down to even here in a medical practice or a surgical practice or a plastic surgical practice of, okay, what is really the trends going on, et cetera, and also, people come here for the glitz and glamour, and some people come here to be part of that glitz and glamour,
right? And they have a certain expectation of people working in the casinos doing that kind of. Do you think there's a Vegas aesthetic?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's the typical.
That's a big question. I know.
Well, there's the typical. Think of a Vegas girl and what pops to mind,
exactly,
right? So,
but that's really changed, I think, over the years.
Yeah, you're thinking, you're Pam Anderson or Jessica Rabbit, and
right.
That's right, so sort of thing. But having said that, no, I think that's kind of like we talked about, morphed and changed from the showgirl to something a little bit more sedate, or the cocktail waitress going to be a little bit more sedate. Although there's still room for that glitz and glamour.
Yeah.
I think it's probably more.
And I think, Las Vegas, too, because of the work in the casinos, and like you mentioned about being able to work in the show as a dancer, it literally I know people in that area, and it draws people from around the world. We have people from Australia, from England.
They love it.
Yeah,
because nobody does it like this.
Exactly.
So they love it. They love the red carpet events. They love just kind of the big to dos, and some of them. Another thing with Las Vegas that has evolved is charity events. So now you go to these charity events, whether it's the Lou Ruvo Center for Brain Health, which is administered by the Cleveland Clinic, which is a phenomenal
place.
Yeah. And so, but Larry and Camille Ruvo, they have this fundraiser every year, and they raise millions of dollars. So that, and they have to, because that kind of care is expensive, and that kind of care doesn't get paid for by government. So basically, is this spectacular gem of a neurological institute gets paid for by very, very generous folks, and that is kind of a glitz and glamour event that everybody looks forward to.
And that's really growing, right?
So that continues. Agassi had his for a while. Shaq has his as well, and the one with Shaq is really unique because everybody in there is flipping tall. I walk in like, holy smokes! I'm like in the land of the.
Well,
sequoias.
you have a Shaq shoe in your office that's gigantic.
Yeah, size 24. Yeah, size 24. So bananas. Yeah, I think it was bigger than my apartment in San Francisco. crazy. So yeah, and so everybody there was. I mean, and there were the female, the WNBA players and some of the college players, and so everybody was all and everybody was wearing heels, and so really I thought I was in the land of the sequoias there. And Shaq is just a big, huge, wall.
And he's what a genius guy.
Oh yeah, so
it's amazing.
And there's a few other events that will go ahead and bring out those folks, usually for the good and for the good of the community and that sort of thing. And if we have a big event, usually there's some sort of foundation tied to it. Yeah. There's some sort of outreach for the kids, or there's some sort of, which again is what I think is terrific. It's always been here in Las Vegas, but now people are seeing it more and more and more.
Well, and that's something that you like to do a lot of, and you attend many of those events.
Sure.
And it's a lot of wonderful people that are kind of household names in Las Vegas that other folks might not know.
Right.
But Mark Davis is one who owns the Raiders. And
he's been terrific. He's been ridiculously charitable all over town, and they have his foundation. But him personally, and to that, I'll shout him out right now, as I went to Chaparral High School, which the demographics kind of changed, et cetera, et cetera. And the football field's always been lousy. So, and the track was lousier. I ran track, and I was lousy on the lousy track, but that's another story. So, but having said that, because the water ran off into the track and made mud, and the guys, the BMX bikes, it was like the Grand Canyon. Anyway, so
I digress.
But I digress. I do that a lot. So, having said this, my wife will also tell you that. But having said all of that, is so Mark came to town, and basically he picked a bunch of inner city schools or folks, the schools that had lousy fields, and he gave them brand new football fields, AstroTurf, $250,000 a piece.
It's amazing.
And he made like 6 of them. And so I ran into him at a thing, and I told him that, and I said, that's really a very cool move for you to make. And
there's a lot of love for the Raiders in terms of like all the community stuff, for sure.
Oh yeah, no, they've done a good job with that. So, and then, but a lot of folks now have done that. There's the Raiders, the Golden Knights do that, the Aces, and then guess what? The U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds are here too, and those guys are spectacular, and they're always in hospitals. They're always doing good things for the community. So I've seen kind of that evolution continue, and I think it's really, really cool.
Yeah, there's so much more to Las Vegas than I think a lot of people realize. They always think casinos, but there's a lot of people here with big hearts and very community oriented and taking care of the kids and so much more. It's really amazing to see. Yeah. Let's tell people how they can find you online.
Sure. So we're all over the place. We're on the World Wide Web at www.jjrothmd.com. That's jjrothmd.com. We are also all over the social media aspect, which is everything from Instagram to Facebook to Twitter to LinkedIn to YouTube. And many more. And so we're all over. So if you're on a social media platform, we're probably there. So please do look for us there. And please do comment, subscribe. And then if you have questions, we really like questions. So please go ahead, ask questions, and we'll make a whole podcast around it probably.
Yeah, and if you're trying to find us on social media, just look for at Las Vegas Plastic Surgery. Easy to find, and there's so much, even TikTok now, there's so many. It's hard to keep track.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah, I don't have to keep track of that anymore. It was my wife was like, "You spend way too much time on that." I'm like, So thankfully, I have a spectacular social media team now that helps me out with that kind of stuff.
It takes a team, that's for sure. It takes a village.
It takes a village. No kidding.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and we hope you got some great information out of this. Vegas is always a fun topic.
Absolutely. So yeah, Vegas is always a good idea. So absolutely. Any questions, please send them in. And in the meantime, we'll catch you again soon.
Thanks a lot, and have an awesome day.
Thank you so much for joining us. For further information, please visit the podcast website link for Dr. Jeffrey Roth. See you next time.